So how did our conductor, Unique, compare? We see a stunning synchronicity between Yuja and Unique's heartbeats. They were feeling the music in similar ways.
Wow.
That's why we like to make music. It's like your brainwaves really just thinking about the same thoughts.
Incredibly, even when no one in the orchestra is playing, the audience's heartbeats go up during emotionally intense sections.
We're literally on the same wavelength. And if we're in the same room with people while we're listening to music together, say in a concert, not only are the brainwaves synchronized, but we're experiencing an exchange of oxytocin, this hormone that binds us together as a people.
Back to the work, I think, of Dr. Austin, and that is, with the eidetic imagery, what are you feeling?
It has three parts, the eidetic imagery. It's what do you see, what do you feel, and what's the meaning attached to it. And
that's the aesthetic triad that you talked about in your book.
And it's so powerful. We talk a lot now in society, and I think we have to, stop talking so much and start imaging and imagining and stepping into and feeling into the future that we want to have for humanity. So these are new tools that could be used on multi-levels. Like plant medicine is being used to jumpstart some of this emotionality and access. And then I think we talk about in the book that the future of art, we're already doing it. Instead of looking at a painting, we're stepping into paintings. There's all this experiential art that is designed literally to get you out of your mind and into your body and into a whole other imaginative place. There's one artist group called Chromosonic. It's a 20-minute experience and you are seeing sound and feeling color. Some of these experiences just twist the way your mind is used to thinking of things. And so by totally you not being able to make sense of it, it gives you an incredible sense of presence and release from your mind and gives you a break. And you come out from these experiences feeling incredibly renewed. So I think you've hit upon something that we think there's no accident that all this is coming into popularity. And you come out of there fully present because I think your monkey mind has gone away and your brain has had to make sense of the color and the sound. Now, when our senses are lit up, that's where we feel alive, and that we need to give our brains a break and get out of our cognitive mind.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Anjan Chatterjee. Anjan developed a theoretical model about 10 years ago called the Aesthetic Triad. It explains how and why we perceive the world from our unique perch. The triad has three components. The first is where you come from and what you know. The second is your physiological responses. And the third is your feelings and your emotions. And at the center of these intersecting circles is your unique aesthetic experiences. It's where you have the most peak experiences that are altered by the saliency of the things that you do.
Arts and aesthetics are some of the most salient experiences. This salient information enters your body and has unlimited capacity to change and enhance your cognition, emotions, perspective, mood, decision-making, and so much more. Biologically, we learn to make art and to be moved by aesthetics by connecting to our senses using sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste.
The ancients knew what Julie Bolte Taylor, a neuroanatomist, is telling us here in this quote. Most of us think of ourselves as thinking creatures that feel, but we are actually feeling creatures that think.
Your entire body, not just your brain, takes in the outside world, but you're only conscious of about 5% of your mental activities.
The rest of your experiences physically, emotionally, sensorially, lies below what you're actually thinking.
A great example of neuroplasticity in action happens in the places that we inhabit. In the 60s, neuroscientist Marianne Diamond designed an experiment using rats where she created 3 different physical spaces. The first was called Enriched environments, using wheels and color and novel design. The second was a less sensorial space that lacked any engagement, and the third was a standard rat cage. After just 2 weeks, she analyzed the rat's brain and found that the cerebral cortex, or the outer layer of the brain from the enriched environment, had increased in a thickness by 6%, compared to those in the other areas, the less sensorial areas, that actually decreased brain mass. This was the first time that anyone had ever seen a structural change in an animal's brain using different types of environmental experiences. Since then, studies have been done with humans using non-invasive technology, and we believe that the implications for this type of environmental change are profound.
How do we translate that type of research from the 1960s, for crying out loud? What do we do with that today?
Well, Marian Diamond was a real hero and a real pioneer. She was reprimanded by male neuroscientists in the 60s for thinking that she could really have such a profound insight around neuroplasticity. And, it wasn't believed what she said for a really long time. And that research, as seminal as it was, has not really been used in thinking about enriched environments for people as much as it should have been. I think the movements are changing now, and there's a lot more work around intentional spaces. But, the profound impact of enriched environments where there's novelty, surprise, awe, curiosity. It's now starting to be built on. We're thinking about school design, healthcare design. NIH is starting to put money in this country into research around the role of these aesthetic experiences for health and well-being and learning. I've been involved in a project called Intentional Spaces, which is a global subfield of neural arts to really develop a strategy to bring neuroarchitecture and neurospatial design into the world, for designers, for contractors, for developers, for researchers, for policymakers, for urban design. We just launched the roadmap this week with the Global Wellness Institute. And it's a wellness issue. Space is really a wellness issue.
That's exactly right.
Never thought of it before. We've always thought about it, as Ivy said, as function. But it's really about how you heal and grow and learn and thrive. And so I'm very excited about the interest in this from people who already have money in the pipeline, right? It's happening anyway. So how do you take those dollars and make them more cost effective? The goal of humanity's wellness, not only revenue. And I think those are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. And sometimes I think we have to go back to move forward in terms of in ancient times, Pythagoras' time. If you wanted to be an architect, you had to also study medicine and be a philosopher, because you had to understand how the body moves through space and the effects of it. So they knew in ancient times the holistic perspective and the impact of space. And then we just shed all that and started to specialize, as opposed to seeing the whole picture and the whole human.
So in the spring of 2019, the two of us had the opportunity to put neuroaesthetic principles into action in real time to illustrate the effects of sensory perceptions on our bodies in an exhibit called A Space for Being at the Milan Design Fair. It's an example of enriched environments, default mode network, and the aesthetic triad that Susan talked about.
This came to life through a collaboration with Google, Susan's lab at Hopkins, and architect Suchi Reddy. Participants walked into a space where they were fitted with a custom band containing sensors that were continuously taking in biological information, including body temperature, variable heart rate, and pulse. Participants were invited to touch, smell, listen, and explore for 5 minutes in 3 different rooms with no talking, no devices, no photos. Each of the 3 rooms were designed with a different set of neuroaesthetic principles that affected the choice of colors, textures, materials, shapes, music, scent, and lighting. At the end of the experience, each visitor received a personalized data visualization revealing in which space their bodies felt the most at ease or most relaxed. This conclusion was based on their real-time biological feedback being fed into the algorithm that we developed. And as predicted, in over 56% of the people, the room they liked the best was not necessarily the one in which their body felt the most at ease. The point is that the body is feeling all the time, and our mind is not necessarily connected. The experiment was a success as we were able to show that what we think is not necessarily what we feel, and our body is feeling all the time through our senses.
Most of us go through our lives and we're very transactional. We're very purpose-driven. We're moved from A to B. We have a lot going on. And that doesn't allow us to really let the world in.
We haven't really remembered always that the only way that we bring the world in through our bodies is through our senses. And so just a couple of things to share. From a vision point of view, vision is extremely complex. It works very similarly to a camera, and it's really the optic nerve that sends these signals to the back of your head, to the occipital lobe. And interestingly, we now know that in a single hour, you process about 36,000 visual images. Think about that, 36,000 in just a single image. And it's estimated that you probably process around 25 million images throughout your lifespan. So when you start to really understand the power of the visual system, it's extraordinary. And thinking about touch, we know that we have about 4 million sensory nerves throughout our exterior of our body. Just in your fingertips alone, you have over 3,000 nerve endings. So just think about how when you're touching things in your feet, each of your feet has about 200,000 nerve endings, and they're really, really responsible for the way that neuropeptides like oxytocin, which is sort of considered the love hormone, releases, or think about serotonin or dopamine. So this ability to touch is sort of a superpower, whether you're touching materials, text, or whether we're touching each other. And then just last, thinking a little bit about scent and smell. And so we know that smell is probably the oldest sense that first to evolve, and that your nose can literally detect 1 trillion odors with 400 different scent receptors. And interestingly, you bring these, everything kind of releases a molecule that you bring in through your nose. Your nose actually turns over those cells 30 to 60 days. So your body is actually renewing so that you're ready to be able to take in these new experiences.
What about this concept of olfactory enrichment? The smells and other things that again have been passed down through human history.
Yeah, so there's some really incredible research that came out recently that shows that olfactory enrichment, which means just smelling different things during the day, can improve memory and cognition as we age. But there's a particular research. The experiments were done overnight with diffusers giving out essential oils, but you can do it by smelling your coffee, lighting a candle, I've got reed diffusers and mechanical diffusers throughout my house, that if you rotate through 7 different smells, it increases your brain power by 226%.
Just smells?
Yeah.
Really? Any particular smells? Any particular essential
obviously,
oils?
trying to keep them natural. No, it's just a variety.
And so if we are neurobiologically wired to bring the world and to create those highly salient experiences that build neural pathways, that connect us to ourselves and to each other, the arts are sort of fundamental and foundational.
If we're not engaging in arts, we're really depriving something that is deeply, deeply human.
Or I would say at least noticing beauty. I think that's an easier thing to bring into your life. And once I started practicing it, I would, notice the spring blossoms, notice the autumn leaves. And very quickly, because, I do a neuroplasticity training every year, I noticed how many times a day in my head or out loud I was saying, that's so pretty, that's so beautiful, that's so lovely. Oh, look at this, smell that, And I was like, wow, that's I've taken that on really quickly. And I think because we've existed in nature from the beginning of humanity. So it's the most aesthetically pleasing palette to us.
99.9% of the time humans have been on this planet. We have lived in nature. It's only 0.1% that we've lived in the built environment.
Obviously, we were walking barefoot in nature. We were looking at the stars in the sky. So all of that mindfulness, beauty stuff was happening. But we had to be creative as well. Being creative was contributing to our immunity, to our health, to our longevity, to our connections as a tribe. In fact, the authors of the book, Your Brain on Art, Ivy and Susan, they actually count being in nature as a creative activity. There's habituation and saliency in the brain. And habituation is that, if you walk past the same amazing tree or impressive architecture every day, you eventually stop noticing it. Saliency is novelty seeking and curiosity and what I call the art of noticing. Mm-hmm. We need that as humans. It feels so good that once you start doing it, you can't stop. It's like a drug. And for me, that is my gratitude practice taken to the next level. Noticing and appreciating beauty.
So something as simple as noticing your sensory experiences, as being curious or exploring things in a playful way. And so just opening up yourself to this idea of an aesthetic mindset brings that level of joy and I think engagement and even a sense of purpose and meaning into your life. And that's an easy thing to do.
A couple of things that are important about it is that it's both about making and beholding. Mm-hmm. So you could draw or go to an art gallery. You could dance around your living room or go to the ballet. You could sing in the shower or listen to music. The real lovely thing about it is that you don't have to be good at it. The benefits are the same. Got a couple of stats for you. So people who engage in the arts and culture every 2 months have a 31% lower mortality risk. People who only go twice a year have a 14% lower mortality risk.
In my team, we've done lots of work using cohort studies from the UK and the US. And these studies include thousands of adults, and they follow them up over kind of tens of years. Lots of different kinds of arts have been shown to be associated with lower levels of depressive symptoms and enhanced well-being. So we've done some studies testing interventions like the Melodies for Mums program. This aims to improve the health and well-being of new mums with postnatal depression, and it offers them weekly sessions of group singing with their babies. We found that the mums who got to be in the singing group had lower depression scores than the mums who were just getting usual care or who were doing an intervention where they just played with their babies.
So I took that model and thought, if grief is like psychosis and I'm currently in a very vulnerable state, is creativity a conduit for me to get not only back to the state that I was in before, but into a state of expanded awareness where I can loosen the filter as I choose fit. I can notice things that I would have passed by before, and I can think differently about how my mind works, how the world works. Trauma can be stored in your body, and to some extent, it can't be retrieved through talking therapy because there aren't words for it, because it's actually embedded into the tissues of your body. For example, when Robin was in hospital, I would sit in a very hunched over position and my fists would be clenched because I felt like I was fighting for his life all the time. And if I relaxed for a millisecond, he could die. So it makes sense to me that those postural issues would show up for me later in terms of aches and pains. A lot of people have heard of Bessel van der Kolk's work and the book The Body Keeps the Score. And it makes sense. There's an amount of trauma that you can't articulate verbally. So we understand that there are imprints of that in the body. Mm-hmm. There's a really exciting new hypothesis for how that might work called the serotonin hypothesis. I've talked before, I think with you, about intuition through a process called Hebbian learning, which is neurons that fire together, wire together, gets pushed deeper and deeper into neurons from the outer cortex, the limbic system, the brainstem, into gut neurons. And that's why intuition is called gut instinct. And we understand that through stress postures, you could have bracing patterns in your muscles for the trauma that you've experienced. Fascia is the connective tissue that holds your entire body together, all your organs, all your muscles. And until fairly recently, fascia was thought of as a vestigial organ. It was cut away in surgery without thinking that it would have any effect on the rest of your body. Now, it's understood more to actually be an organ of its own and an important one. And the serotonin hypothesis goes some way to explain how the level of constriction of capillaries and the amount of nutrients that's released to skin, fascia, and muscle is a mechanism for how trauma is held in the body.
And with that in mind, what do we do to get rid of that trauma held in the body?
So dancing, singing, drumming, humming, chanting, massage, yoga, craniosacral therapy. And you'll notice the ones I started with are, very related to ancient wisdom. So our ancestors knew this. At ancient Greek burials, they would wail and beat their chests. So they were getting rid of grief by screaming, but also by beating their muscles and letting trauma exit their body.
And using art from an interventional perspective to treat mental illness. Where are we?
This is more trauma than mental illness, but a woman who was training firemen, when they would come out of a fire, who would be traumatized, they would take that trauma home with them. And instead giving them a paintbrush and a canvas, as soon as they come out of that fire, to just put that paint on the paper and start to express what they were feeling. And the young fireman that we interviewed said he could go home to his family and leave that behind, because so often I think we have these micro traumas and macro traumas that just keep piling on until it creates mental illness.
I would say we talked about a lot of different mental states, from stress and anxiety to depression to bipolar disorder. We talked about schizophrenia in the book. The ways that we talked about arts in mental health had to do with symptom relief. For example, working with James Pennebaker's work in expressive writing, not necessarily poetry, although it could be, but getting an idea out of your head onto paper that's causing you difficulty. It does two things. One, it lowers cortisol, and then it also lowers cognitive load.
Why don't you help us understand Priming the Pump and Morning Pages? This is in many ways a restatement of some of your most powerful work from the past.
Well, Morning Pages are 3 pages of longhand morning writing about absolutely anything. And whatever crosses your mind goes to the page, and you don't censor. You write as it occurs to you. And what you're doing then is saying to yourself, all parts of me are welcome here. Translates into productivity. And I think the tools of priming the pump are tools for longevity.
Your writings, there's got to be 40 plus titles there, and it goes from fiction, nonfiction, of course, all the Artist's Way series books, other books on creativity, books on spirituality. You've got memoir, fiction, plays, poetry. So we are in the presence of one of the most prolific artists of our time. You've really done so much, and you have a life of being embedded in the core of creativity with, having spent so much time around film. Your former husband, Martin Scorsese.
From a deep pockets place of experience, I wanted to share what I had learned, because we have a very dangerous mythology that says writing is terribly difficult, and writers have to be tormented and write out of pain. And what I have found is that writing can be blissful, and we can write out of joy. I've been doing morning pages, let's say 40 years. They were inspirational. I want to put a word in here for writing by hand. It's a wonderful practice because there's a direct connection between the heart and the hand.
Like, how do you use creativity and healing together?
Well, I think about creativity like lightning, and if lightning strikes, it can incinerate a whole tree and start a wildfire, but if there's a lightning rod, it can channel the power that's coming through. And so creativity is like that for me. If I have a lightning rod, then I'm not going to get incinerated by my own feelings or my own experiences. I can put it into a poem or a story, and then my pain becomes beauty. Everyone has their own lightning rod. For me, it's definitely writing. I think poetry gets my strongest emotional charge, for my personal experience, but I'm always so surprised by what comes out in fantasy because I'm not in control and my belief is suspended. And so these really deep parts of my subconscious actually start to bleed into the story. And I think it's very therapeutic, but it's kind of through like a sneaky backdoor way.
Yeah.
For me, it feels like the story's there. Like if I just put on some instrumental music and I lay down and I close my eyes, I just start to see a movie play out in my mind. And I notice that if I'm not writing, then my imagination just turns into anxiety.
Ooh, yes. I get this. As a therapist, it was like, if you're not expressing the unconscious, then it will turn into depression, anxiety. But as you do some of that deeper shadow work, it comes out as creativity. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and there's nothing too ugly or too honest for creativity.
I really hear that you follow the thread of honesty and the pulse of what's creatively wanting to emerge in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason that I actually feel like a three-dimensional, well-rounded person is I can't make good art that's not honest. And there are varying degrees. Like there are some times where I can feel there's still a layer of film between me and what I actually want to say. And it takes like a constant digging. But I genuinely think it's my lifeline to my spirit.
We talked with Resma, who does some beautiful work with intergenerational Black trauma, where trauma that's deeply stuck inside of physiology for generation over generation, and swaying and humming and dancing and moving this stuck energy has really kept an entire community alive. Really understanding that it's not just the disease, but it's how you can bring this work in for different moments when you're within disease state and dis-ease, right? It's out of ease. It's really trying to get to some kind of balance or equilibrium.
My name is Alonzo King. I'm the artistic director of Alonzo King Lines Ballet. It's a San Francisco-based international touring ballet company. We're invited to the Health Festival here at Aspen, and I brought 4 dancers from the company to do a demonstration and talk about how health and art are intertwined. My mother took dancing at university, and when I was a kid, she would show me things, and I had a blast with intimacy with my mom, plus I loved moving, so I never stopped. There is a triumvirate of body, mind, soul that is in a balancing act for health. If something is imbalanced, then it's diseased. The performance that we do here on Friday is largely a lecture demonstration, displaying how dance is really ideas, that it's thought made visible in the same way that music is thought made audible. Our hope is that the mind will be stirred and the heart will be moved. And you may argue with it. You want them to hear it and to have some response to it. When I first began dancing, I had no idea that it was a profession. I just knew that it was an experience that made the outer world dim. And I felt larger and euphoric. And I realized that when you have that experience inside yourself, you know that every human being has that potential for that experience. You're stepping into the world of soul language. That is what music and dance is. It can be intellectual language, but its aim is the soul. Music can penetrate you regardless of what mood you're in and alter it. It has that power to go right in. And dance is the same thing. And so in that way, if we could really put it in words, we failed. Because you're talking about what cannot be expressed verbally.
I think for music, which is probably one of our most frequent conversations, is around space. How much space do the phrases have for the body to be in conversation with the melody? How to create something that is a conversation on the stage and in the ear and in the eye. And so it's a real challenge. And so I end up kind of like throwing a lot of ideas at Alonzo, and then he finds a way to pull them together into a kind of like a playlist. And then we find a way to then map that onto the bodies. It's quite a process.
Tap into creativity and bring something to the world that's going to affect people's lives and hopefully last for a long time.
And Calvin, I want to go to you. You have traveled to makeshift shelters for asylum seekers along the Mexican border, where you implemented art therapy to help people process the trauma they're experiencing.
We began using music and the arts to have people move, sing, dance, create images of their countries of origin, create images of safe spaces. We had children design cities, design their communities, and talk about access to parks. And in that federal shelter that had about 792 people, my team and I worked with about 200 children. After doing several activities, we were drumming together, walking around, singing, moving at different rates. At the end, as we had the children embody a sound that they felt, this one child that was completely dysregulated, he held his fist really tight, screamed really loud, and we all imitated that scream. And you could see almost the pressure from the kid's shoulder just release. And in our conversations with parents, particularly this child's parent in that space, we really noticed how children were holding anxious energy, all that depressive energy that was in that space. They were holding in their body without an outlet, and even without the words to express what they were feeling. We've developed different interventions in academic classes to let community leaders, let educators, mental health workers in that area kind of understand how the arts can be beneficial in regulating trauma and in ways of supporting even the service workers themselves, because they're also experiencing vicarious trauma.
I personally feel that sometimes I also don't have the words to express what I'm feeling, and I could see how this could affect kids especially.
And there's a reason that sound bathing and gong baths have become so popular, because it basically resets your nervous system. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're also stressed out, chronically stressed, and that means that most of the time we're in fright, flight, fight, which is the sympathetic nervous system. And vibration is one of the things that can reset us to parasympathetic, which is like rest and digest.
I'll never get out of this bed. Wait, I can
read a book and be a million miles away. I can watch a show and space travel. I can talk to a friend and feel everything they're feeling and be at the dance where they're dancing. And I am free because the human imagination can do anything. That's where my attention went, and that's where my life went. What's happening when people feel stuck is there's a little spiral that happens in a part of our brain that it's such a strange thing. That part of the brain believes that it's stuck and also believes that nothing that contradicts it is true at all. I call it an anxiety spiral. And people who have strokes and they can only use that part of their brain, they believe that half the world doesn't exist because they're only perceiving it with the anxious mind. But if you can go from I'm always going to be stuck in this bed to I'm always going to be free in this bed, then part of your brain lets go of the anxiety and it turns to the part of the brain that is creative. And that is the part that a lot of people don't understand, that the opposite of your worst thought is not this serene bliss or calm. It is that you suddenly walk into the zone of the human imagination at its most creative, and it can solve anything.
Well, that is the topic of your new 7th instant New York Times bestselling book, Beyond Anxiety. And I would love to have you explain that tool, because when you are stuck, when you do feel like you don't know what your purpose is, anxiety does take over.
Oh, yeah.
And so what do you want us to know about curiosity and creativity, especially for somebody who's stuck?
Here's the first thing you need to know. Anxiety always lies. I put that at the end of the book. If I'd put it at the beginning, people would have said, F you, and just thrown it at the wall, right?
Yes.
Because it feels so convincing that your most frightening, self-hating thoughts are the truth. And it's lying. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
So you nailed it in your book, Let Them. Because let them, a phrase where you're in this tense state, you're trying to control. So the anxiety spiral goes fear, control, back to fear again. And it just spins and it gets bigger and bigger. And let them is a way out of the spiral. Let them kind of relaxes the spiral. And then when you say, let me do something, given that this person or this world event is happening the way it's happening, let me assume my my ability to respond, given that my mind is free. So let me do what? Now you are using the part of your brain that creates. And there's tons of evidence showing that anxiety shuts down creativity. Creativity also shuts down anxiety. So if you can go into that creative space, you will go for 3 or 4 hours and then realize, I haven't been anxious for 3 or 4 hours.
So the second and third part of the book, what does that look like for you, that anxiety can turn into this joyful experience of creativity and then even more, your life's purpose? What on earth?
Yeah. It can act like a springboard because it's so wretched and miserable. Ultimately, we go, I don't want this. I want to get out of it. And ironically, we put pressure on kids to be creative and on each other to be creative in a very judgmental, comparative way that comes from that controlling part of the brain. So it comes out of anxiety. Everything in that set of brain structures, it works on comparison and juxtaposition and ranking things. And it's great stuff if you're doing a science experiment. Well, this was an experiment I did. It was in the pandemic. I was like, oh my God, I think these toggle. I'm going to do an experiment. I just started drawing like 20 hours a day, like couldn't sleep, full of joy. I felt so intoxicated. Wow. And my anxiety dropped to 0. And it was after 60 years of continuous anxiety.
Yes, Judy Tuwaldt-Stiwa, she decided she was going to do what she calls a continuous painting, which was actually motivated by cave paintings where the Indians would paint in a cave and then whitewash over it and then tell another story. But she held a lot of trauma, and she would paint, stand back, look at it, and then put white paint over it and do another painting on top of it. This went on for days. And so it's interesting in that she was getting out of her system whatever needed to come out unconsciously, not judging it and not owning it. You know, emotions is energy in motion. So it's getting her energy out on the canvas. And by the end of it, I saw in her studio this beautiful thick white painting that she had photographed, all like 40 different images that she had done. You could feel the aliveness through the texture of that white paint on the canvas. But she understood her trauma and herself. It was like a mirror back to herself. She calls it the white, black, and red painting during 3 different periods of her life, where the end result is just the solid color, but underneath is layers and layers of her own emotional trauma that she was able to relieve.
I have experienced firsthand how piano playing, music, dance really helps me move through all the emotions, energy and motion that I need to process from challenges, conflicts, and grief. And the best part is it is fun and joyful and playful. It can be. And we have to allow ourselves to surf the wave of the different emotions that we will be experiencing in life.
In my experience, I think creativity is about the possibilities that can be, and that it allows people to create alternate perspectives, right? To live in that multitude of uncertainty. You know, in a society that's bifurcated by binaries, right? In many ways, those binaries cut us off from our humanity. So creativity flexes that muscle that holds on to ambiguity and can imagine alternative possibilities in a way that we hope is dynamic enough that inspires action in individuals and societies.
Whether they're creative artistically or not is another question, but we're all creative. We have to be, because all day long we're doing unscripted things that we didn't know we would be doing. Life is not scripted. And so no matter who you are in this world, you're doing things that are unplanned.
In the 60s, NASA did a study to find creative geniuses so they could hire people to go to space. They found that 2% of adults that they tested, who were like highly educated, ranked as creative geniuses. So they went along for a while, and then someone thought to give the same test to 4 and 5-year-olds. 98% of them ranked as creative geniuses. And I think the other 2% were just having a bad day. We are creative geniuses. That is the gift humanity has been given, is this ability to create things that aren't there and then make them real. But we spend all our time just getting anxiety stories and pretending those are real and making them real. What a bummer.
Music played at certain frequencies decreases levels of cortisol, a hormonal marker of stress, while increasing oxytocin, a hormone sometimes used to treat depression and anxiety. And studies show that dancing for even just 15 minutes reduces anxiety and increases feel-good hormones, including endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine, to name a few. And also, dancing is highly effective in creating new neural connections. And believe it or not, working on an art project for 45 minutes, regardless of skill, reduces stress by 25%. The arts and aesthetics also increase your cognitive skills. Musical training improves visual spatial abilities, executive functioning, and memory in adults, with specific neurological pathways supporting these effects. Participation in visual arts and dance improved pattern recognition and observation skills, as well as skills in emotional recognition, cultivation of empathy, identification of story and narrative, and awareness of multiple perspectives, which is so important today. Engaging in dance practices improves neuroplasticity, including significant increase in cognitive function, memory, and attention. And classical music significantly increases working memory compared with no music. Researchers coined the term the Mozart effect after finding that listening to 10 minutes of Mozart resulted in improved spatial temporal reasoning. Art practices also increases synapses and gray matter, which supports cognitive skills, and even doodling increases attention and focus, retention, recall, and consolidation of memory. Making art increases the speed of cognitive processing. Who wouldn't want faster processing? And expressive writing increases our ability to form complex ideas and articulate emotions and feelings, which is so important. And reading poetry lights up some of the same parts of your brain as listening to music does, stimulating your primary reward circuitry and activating reflection and introspection. And what's so incredible is that skills learned through both arts making and beholding transfer to many other areas in our lives.
The arts have the ability to improve numerous outcomes. They can improve pro-social skills, including empathy, trust, and compassion, problem-solving skills, including creativity, reflection, and critical thinking. Listening to music has positive effects on people that can make them more tolerant, empathetic, and generous. Empathetic responses to paintings are a result of mirror neurons, which engage emotional circuitry of joy, fear, or anger to mirror the emotions expressed in that artwork. Appreciation of art has also been seen to increase inspiration and creativity, and participants who engage in appreciating works of art are better able to generate creative solutions and show enhanced performance. The arts can enhance reflective thinking, which can also in turn improve decision-making and problem-solving processes on multiple levels for critical thinking. And even dancing can trigger our social brains to connect and bond. And this propensity for synchronicity is something that we innately do as humans. Storytelling can be used to present creative ideas and to build creative thinking and problem-solving skills. The arts can improve creative communications and foster leadership skills. And finally, epidemiologists are also showing that when we engage in arts experiences as makers or beholders, we make better decisions throughout our lives.
These arts and aesthetic experiences help us know and feel the wholeness of what it is to be human.
And there are so many skills which fall out of the discipline of learning to play an instrument. You learn discipline, you learn how to practice, how to organize your time, you learn how to work together in a team. To play in an orchestra is team building. You learn how to pay attention. You learn how to focus on sounds. These are all highly transferable skills.
At the end of the book, you reference Northrop Frye, who's a big deal in this country, and composer Kent Nagano or Nagano? How does he say? Nagano. Okay.
Conductor Kent Nagano.
Conductor.
Montreal Symphony, yeah.
To hammer home the point that the arts are a fundamental part of being human. And we know that when school boards run into trouble, one of the first things they cut if they need to find money is the music program. What do you think we lose if society loses music and the arts?
Well, I mean, I'm just a simple country neuroscientist. This isn't really my domain. But, you know, Northrop Frye and Kent Nagano and others who have thought deeply about this would say, without the arts, we cannot connect to people whose thoughts and experiences are different from our own. We reject them intellectually. But the arts can open our hearts, and when that happens, the mind follows. Without the arts, we cannot engage in acts of imagining a world different than the one we're in, and if we can't imagine a better world, we can't create it.
That's pretty sweet.
End of May or early June, this picture-perfect afternoon we share. An open field that's framed with trees, we pick a spot and shoot the breeze like buddies do. We walk a while and talk about the things we'll do when we get out of school. There's nothing that we can't discuss, like girls we wish would notice us but never do. There we go, wondering how the world might look from up so high. One foot after the other, one branch then to another. I climb higher and higher, higher I climb till the entire sun.
And imagine the possibilities then when we open up the network and say, let's get the doctors, let's get the therapists, let's get all of these people together. We need the neuroscience information, we need the behavioral information, we need the knowledge about the patient, we need the caregivers to jump in on all this stuff, we need the musical knowledge. Let's all get together and create a facility where we can really do this.
But what has to happen on the large scale to move thinking about music and medicine from the realm of novelty and anecdote into something of relative urgency? If you look at the way that by 2050, I think I have the figure here, the amount of, the folks in America with Alzheimer's projected to rise from 7 million people to 13 million by 2050. Worldwide, 55 million people live with dementia. So this is going to be a problem that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more urgent to address. So what systemically has to happen?
Well, this is policy, going back to that, and it's also getting it covered by insurance. There are only 12 states that now license music therapy and creative arts therapists. We need every state. We need licensure in every state. Illinois just passed it. I did a video for Pennsylvania, who have a vote coming up, and enabling these therapists to earn a living doing what they're doing, and it's very inexpensive compared with anything else, certainly compared with pharmaceuticals or other interventions. And so I think it's just a matter of time and getting the message out. This is the level of research and the quality of the research is relatively new because it has to be evidence-based. And in order for government, Medicare, insurance companies to say, wow, this is going to save us a fortune if we add creative arts therapies to our treatments, and it will. So the NeuroArts Blueprint is doing a new study, and the results are shocking. The one they already did shows a return of 3 to 1 in investment in elder care facilities with Alzheimer's, just bringing music interventions in.
Wow.
So the new study is even more shocking, and they haven't released it yet, so I'll wait. But it's going to definitely move the needle when these entities discover this, they're going to save a lot of money.
And I think also, in addition to allowing music therapists to earn a living wage, to be certified, there is the American Music Therapy Association. It's a certification. It's a special course of study. It's not nothing. It's
mostly master's degree, mostly 6 years of study.
I think we also need to create a society in the United States where artists, creative artists, musicians can earn a living. Music should be a profession. It shouldn't be something that you have to support by being a waiter or an Uber driver. Some of the best musicians I know are driving Uber. And they get home at the end of a long day and they don't feel as creative as they might if they were able to make their living at it. When I grew up, television used to be free and I had to pay for music. Now, you have to pay for television, and I pay for a bunch of channels I probably don't even watch and I don't even know about it. And music is effectively free, and the artists I know are really struggling. We tend to think of the big ones like Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen and the Stones who are making a lot of money, but you know as well as I do, about 98% of the money goes to 2% of the artists, and most musicians in this country are living at or below the poverty level. And so how are they going to create healing music?
And it's the same for dance or visual arts or all of our artists, all of our professional artists.
We're one of the wealthiest countries, and we spend the smallest amount per capita on supporting art.
It's true.
So that needs to change.
And the NEA,
with your help, everybody here.
The NEA is miraculous. What the NEA accomplishes with a tiny budget, their budget is the same as New York City's cultural budget, one city, and they do this all across the country. I admire the NEA so much.
Every major country, every major Western country has a minister of culture. We do not.
We do not.
I think you should be a cabinet level.
I think that just really reminds us that those things that are often seen as luxuries or frivolous, they're not at all. They're fundamentally important.
It's so important to hear this again, that art is not just a form of enrichment or luxury. It is truly our lifeline. This amazing discussion educated me and informed me so much more than I thought I knew about the benefits of art. The fact that art forms, all different types of art forms, could help us not only release stress and tension, which is the surface level that we know about art, it actually helps us decrease plaque in our brain or flushes it out, and restore our balance back to alignment, helps us with emoting and move the energy in our bodies. And aside from stress, it helps us release grief, as you heard from Dr. Tara Swart. And that is such an important part of life because life and death are part of the same cycle. We can expect everything to be impermanent in life, except that someday we will all pass away from our body form. Hence, grief is an essential part of living, that we have to learn how to really move through that process healthily. We will be grieving not just loss of family members and relatives, but various losses in our lives. Every time we go through a certain change in our life, we know we're gonna miss some aspects of our old chapter of life whenever we transition into a new chapter of life, and even the stages of life. We may not have to shed our old self every time we go through a transition, but there is an integration of the old and the new, and an assessment. What do we want to bring with us that we have learned, and moving forward, how do we want to change? Not necessarily to accommodate other people, but just for us, we're always improving ourselves as we evolve. That's part of evolution. And we will be missing a portion of the old. And I believe that is a form of grief as well, to miss something that you may have not lost, but you will not be experiencing that again the same way. So to really learn how to navigate grief is a life skill. And to know that arts is a wonderful way to process grief is so comforting. And then after grief, we can invite joy back into our lives and to get back in the rhythm of living, because that too is important. If we get stuck in a place that is constantly in gloom and doom, which I'm totally guilty of. Some days I still feel very depressed from who knows what. Probably a lot of the challenges I faced in the past. I myself sometimes don't even cognitively know what I'm grieving about, what I'm sad about. But then to be able to pick myself back up and get myself out of that state into joy and excitement again and getting back in the rhythm. And then knowing that going through the cycle of grieving and then joy and being okay with certain challenges that happen or conflicts and be able to move forward is not just essential, I feel, it is the essence of living.
From the sensual touch of the Argentine tango to the meditative contortions of Japanese Buto, the fluid energy of American breakdancing to the rhythmic control of European ballet, we are a world of movers. But why do we do it? And what can our long love affair with dance teach us about ourselves? One, dance is the hidden language of the soul.
The purpose of dance, it's like asking, what's the purpose of a heartbeat? It's to keep us alive, it's to keep societies bonded together, it's to keep our minds ticking over, and it's to keep us fit and healthy. We've been dancing since the beginning of human time, and it's an integral part of who we are as humans.
The first records of humans dancing are from cave paintings in India, which date back to about 10,000 years ago. By the era of ancient Greece, people were dancing to celebrate gods and to entertain crowds at the Greek Olympic Games. In Europe, dancing moved from rural villages into the royal courts of kings and queens. 2. You dance love, and you dance joy, and you dance dreams. Much of the dance choreographed and performed today has its roots in ballet, which dates back to 15th century Italy. Ballet became an art, telling entire stories through expressive movements.
People are taking these balletic movements and changing them and evolving them.
In response to ballet came modern dance, jazz, hip-hop and breakdance. And you only need to scroll through social media to see how dance continues to evolve. Throughout our lives, the way we dance can change. Children intuitively express themselves by dancing to music. But as we grow up and become self-aware, many people stop dancing.
A large portion of society thinks they're not the right type of person to dance, because we take something that's really fundamental and natural and expressive in movement, and then we codify it, we make it very strict, we judge people for it, people feel self-conscious when they do it, and then people stop doing it. When we dance, it stimulates so many areas of our brain, the balance area, the visual perception area, the memory areas of the brain. All those different aspects of the brain become stimulated when we move our body in different ways. We get a release of the endogenous opioid system, and that production of opioids gives us a high when we dance.
So the question is less, why do we dance? And more, why must we dance? 3. Everything in the universe has rhythm. Everything dances.
It's a glue that bonds societies together. But it's not just about the broader society. We dance with our families and our significant others. We dance for identity, to belong to certain groups. When I dance, I feel more connected with other people. My anxieties and worries seem to be pushed aside for a moment while I'm dancing. My emotions can be expressed. My thinking is different. My heart, my body just feels alive.
I am already feeling so excited excited just talking about this. So if you enjoy everything that I'm sharing with you, I also have other offerings. That I am putting together a team with my artist friends to offer a creativity play shop. Now, why do I call it play shop? Because I'm trying to encourage play and joy, as nobody needs any more workshop. We have lots of that in other areas of life. So we're gonna play. And as we heard, we don't have to be great at these forms of creative arts that we are exploring, and just have fun to spark that inner aliveness in us. Of course, as a piano teacher, I do both. I allow students to have fun, and I also teach excellence. I teach the mastery of the skill, right? That's also important for development. In order for us to just enjoy it, we can start with just feeling and exploring all the fun that the different types of art forms offer us. So in my play shop, my team and I will be offering breath work, and really using our breath to move the energy, movements, and movement in the form of healing movement as well as play movement, which is dancing. And different types of dance. Argentine tango dance form is a great way for us to feel our masculine and feminine energy in movement. And then when you can feel it, you're gonna know how to get back to that state. Also music, as I mentioned, how music really teaches us deep listening. So I'll have different types of fun activities for us to really cultivate those skills. And then improvisation, acting improv. And I specifically like acting improv because we don't have to think. In fact, we need to get out of our thinking mind to just be able to dance in conversation with people. It's about dancing with the person you're interacting with words. Improv is a great way for us to have fun and be playful and not judge, because it's meant to be funny. We know at least the expectation of improvisation is it would not make sense, but it will definitely evoke a lot of laughter. There will be many different activities by my artist friends who are in the musical theater field and the theater field to help with that. You come away from these play shops feeling full and rich with the nourishment of your being, of your soul, of however you want to call that inner energy, that life force within us, the charge that operates in our human form. We'll have a one-day play shop versus, let's say, a weekend play shop. If it's a longer retreat play shop, then we will have the ability to have more integration and to be able to enjoy the performance by all my artist friends. As we are artists, we love to perform. So imagine the end of the play shop as also a private concert for you. In order to bring all these artists together, we are also experimenting with the idea of touring and traveling with this team. So I welcome any type of contribution and sponsorship that you would like to help us get this launched. Please contact me if you're interested to be part of this wonderful movement. Thank you.
We dance to belong, to seduce, to find peace and taste joy. We dance to stand up for what we believe in. We dance to heal, and we dance because this is what it is to be human.